Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to do a timeline. We're going to show you a pre and post NESARA kind of timeline. And we've talked about some of these points of information. Now, if you've gone to my website at drscottyoung.com, you can kind of see this on the screen. The drscottyoung.com area, you've seen my Hope in the Last Days timeline. And on that timeline, you can download that. It's for free. Don't say it's not free. You can donate to my foundation. But the point is that you can download that. You can kind of get that if you'd like. It took me about a year and a half to kind of build that thing. It was really hard to do. But I'm building some other timelines, and we're only 2 timelines into this. So this will probably be your 3 or 4 different timelines that we're kind of building. And I'm going to show you more about this. We're going to do this one here. It'll probably be about 30 minutes or so, because I want to show you a little bit about the timeline. And we're going to walk you through some of those steps. I'm not going to give you every piece of information on there, but we're trying to kind of give you some ideas a little bit about that. Okay, so let's just do our introduction kind of thing and give you some ideas. So here we go. Okay, so let me bring it up here on the screen. So we're going to share that screen, make sure that I share the correct one. The PowerPoint slide, I got to bring it up here on the screen. So, okay, so let's just bring that up on the screen. So pre to post NESARA, I'm going to be looking at the screen here as we go, and on to the last day. So where are we and where are we going? Okay, so you're going to see a lot of information kind of flowing in here, okay? And so let's just kind of move that little ball forward. Okay, so January 2017 to March 2020, all the way to November 2020. Okay, so when we look at this, the Antique Cabal, now most people are not real familiar with this thing called the Antique Cabal. You guys would call them the white hats. Now, I kind of was introduced to them as the Antique Cabal, because my contact always called them that. Now, I didn't know what the cabal was, and if you've listened to me before, you've heard me call that. and the Antique Cabal is this group of the dragon family that is spread out around the world. They're trying to do some humanitarian work, okay? And they have been trying to take out the bad guys, the cabal, for quite a long time frame. And this has been going on for hundreds of years, okay? And so they have been trying to get in and release the debt for quite a long time frame. Now, if you've listened to this one woman, and just recently this woman has come out here in Great Britain, you can say that one several times, Jan Halperin, and she has been dropping bombs, baby. She has been kind of popping this one out. And she's been saying, hey, listen, since the corporation started in 1871, what she's talking about is the U.S. corporation. And since the United States corporation, after the Civil War, after they killed Lincoln, they set the corporation up. And that was that initialization in the corporation. Now, if you want to understand a lot of that kind of stuff, you have to go through our NESARA Explain series. And I have a NESARA Explain series that you can do, that 3-part series that we talk a lot about this. Okay. Now, in that, what we're talking about a little bit pre January of 2017, we have, and Trump is before Trump comes in office, the Antique Cabal almost deploys a coup to take out the U.S. corporation. They were pretty pissed off, and they come to Trump. Many of the generals come to Trump and talk to him about, hey, we want to do this more legitimately, because they were pretty pissed off at the Obama administration, and they had been just pretty much done. Now, this has been trying to happen through that they had been trying to take out the Bush kind of era in the 2001 timeframe. They had been trying to bring in the money in 2008, as you've listened to me, and the cabal continually has tried to take money away from the American people. And then we have the quantum financial system that was brought in that same time frame, when we had the cryptos kind of coming out of that same time frame. That's that Bitcoin, the Bitcoin coming in versus that quantum financial system that was kind of coming in. And that was also the same time frame when they were trying to bring in the money to try to bring America out of the corporation. Well, they stole the money again. So around 2014, this is kind of when I was hearing about some of the money that had come in. And about 2012, well, I sort of heard the real money that had come in. But 2014, this is when they were asking Trump to come in. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, you got to be kidding me. Who's Trump in all of this, right? Trump had, I mean, you'd never heard of a guy who's just a businessman. I mean, Ross Perot was the first guy in 1992. It was just a billionaire and trying to run for president. And obviously, it was a failed circumstance. Now, that was a real weird circumstance where they were trying to take Bush out of office and get Clinton in. It separated the vote for Bush and got Clinton in office. Okay. And when Trump steamrolled his way into office and just wiped out Hillary, really pissed them off, because what they did is they turned off the internet capability of the Dominion machines. And so they had found a way to go, you know what, we're going to turn off the Dominion machines and we're going to let the first real vote happen. And it really messed the people up. Or the idiots up with that. So the Antique Cabal almost wanted to take him out. And so what we had is Trump was asked to serve by the Antique Cabal, the good guys. Okay. So that's partly what happens. Now, we have in October 1st of 2017, we have the Vegas false flag. Now, many of you might remember there was a concert. It was a country concert, and down by the hotels down there, and there was some crazy kind of things, and it was always a lone nut that is shooting from a high perch. They always love doing that. But what you don't know is that he's got spent bullets, and then of course, we don't know anything about him, and he never really gets caught in that way. And we don't really hear his story. We don't get to talk about him. We don't have any of that information on that. And so it goes along, but here's what happens. Here's what really occurred is they were trying to kill Trump. And they were also trying to kill the Prince of Saudi Arabia, because at the same time, they were trying to take over they were trying to take out the Saudi Arabian area. So they had really gone through dealing with the money issues. So the Saudi Arabian prince was like, wait a second, Trump, hey man, you are my guy. You saved me. And he was given his marching orders to help the Trump administration to do some things. So here's what happened. So this is October 1st of 2017. So this is not just a little while afterward. So then he brings up the first of the bankruptcy event of the cabal. So we've got the executive order 13818. So you've heard me talk about this, and it brings up, see, we always have the 14th Amendment, which under the fourth section, now the 14th Amendment under the fourth section still brings in around 1871, and that time, basic time frame. We're doing this constitutionally. See, the cabal hates the real Constitution. See, they're always referring to their Constitution, which we really haven't read. The real Constitution is what you and I see. Okay, what we see historically. They're looking from their own satanic level constitution, what they're trying to do. What this constitution, or excuse me, what this particular provision does in this one is that it stipulates if you have crimes against humanity, we are going to take away your ability to shift any money around. And it has about 6 different ways of moving your money. Now, it's really a strange kind of thing. And when you really look at this, because it's really strange how this happens. It is a type of bankruptcy event. Now, it happens in later November, so it's not even a month after the Vegas Falls flag. And you say, well, why is it? And it's really close to the Vegas Falls flag. So what it does is it sets up our next point. It says we're taking out money. Right around that same time frame, all the billionaires start trying to take out money out of their own companies because they know what's coming. Now, not even 2 months later, in January of 2018, Trump sets up the next level of executive orders that's very important, which is Executive Order 13848, which utilizes the 14th Amendment under the third section. And it says if you have crimes against humanity under the third section, that you cannot, or sorry, I'm gonna go backward here. Under the fourth section, it actually, the 14th Amendment under the fourth section, it intimates that you do not have to pay back the debts that are foreign owned, which is such a nutty kind of statement. Now we know that the Federal Reserve is a foreign owned entity. That's why he's utilizing that kind of point. That's why he's bringing in that kind of area. He's not fully referencing it in the executive order, but everyone who knows anything about the Federal Reserve knows that it is a foreign entity. Now, the election fraud intimates something even more interesting. The election fraud talks about crimes against humanity, and it talks about stealing the elections. Now, in the past, we couldn't even say that particular thing on channels. But now we're allowed to say that because it's so rampant everywhere we go. Even in some new elections in 2023, I mean, we know they're happening. They mess up machines and you can't even put it through the election ballot points. Here in the Tulsa area in 2020, a very close friend of mine couldn't even put it through the ballot areas, and she was definitely a Republican, and she couldn't put it through there. She couldn't put it; it wouldn't go through. And 4 or 5 people were stacking up, and the woman kept saying, "No, just put it in the basket over there. I'll put it through later." It just wouldn't go through. And she goes, And she was listening to the Spirit of the Lord, and she goes, "No, we're going to wait until you fix it." The woman walked right around the side of the machine and just beep, flicked on the machine, and she was able to put it through. They were turning off the machines. That is crimes against humanity. These people that are running the machines know exactly what they're doing. They are going to be held accountable. And the held accountable is going to be the trains are coming for them. You guys don't understand. Those FEMA camps that you think are coming are going to be for that, for us, they are for all of those workers who've been keeping those ballots against us, have been messing with the ballots. Boy, howdy, it's coming. And it's coming like a flood, because it's been coming from 2018 and 2020 and 2022 and all those other little tiny elections, all the way down to the smallest elections. They've been screwing with this because we've been watching. We know what you've been doing. And this is how the corporation, this is how they steal it. They steal it, and then they've been taking the money with this. And this is how they take care of this. Now, again, we have the Vegas false flag, where the Saudi prince accepts his marching orders to do the next part of this thing. So we have the preparation of GESARA. See, NESARA has always been just an internal thing that it runs in that particular way. And so we have the NESARA thing that has been happening internally, but we really needed the world to be involved. So that's why we had GESARA, or global issues. So each of the nations would have a decentralized currency. So Great Britain will have her own currency, and Canada will have her own currency, and Mexico will have her own currency, and South Africa will have her own currency and have her debt wiped out and have all the good things available to her own people. But they're also going to be taking out their own part of the cabal with this. And this is what Trump was doing all the way through his first level of presidency. Now, when we still move up to the March 2020, see, in that time frame, we had Obama and his deep state walking right behind and trying to come out with his cabal, and they were setting up their Great Reset conversations. Now, see, you didn't know this was happening in the background. And see, Trump said, "We have it all." This is what the 17th letter people were telling you. Now, even there is a recent movie, Oppenheimer. And what you don't know about the 17th letter point, if you don't know what the 17th letter, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. The 17th letter is this is in sign language. And you can go look it up, what the 17th letter is. And what the 17th letter is, and a real interesting point, it is the secretist group points. It is a group that has nuclear clearance level. It is the deepest clearance. And do you know that in Oppenheimer, in the movie, when he gets nuclear clearance, they tell him he has 17-letter clearance. It's fascinating. This is a clip. I put it on my Telegram channel. You don't understand. This is and all the generals started to share that level of clearance. Okay. And it's funny because I'll share something powerful that comes out of that particular thing. So the deep state was trying to walk behind as a shadow government to try to mess with this and push their Great Reset thing. Now, in March of 2020, when the COVID silliness was coming out, we had something that occurred in the CARES 2 Act, the 1,200-page document that I went through along with an ex-IRS agent who verified that information. And this is where we understood that the Federal Reserve died. The Federal Reserve was sublimated underneath the Treasury Department. How do you kill off a whole agency, a whole level of all of these people? You start by knocking out the queen before you start the game. This is how you do it, guys. When you're sitting there trying to figure out how do you win, you start. I want you to realize in March of 2020, when you guys were first hearing, and me too, when we were all hearing for the first time what the Great Reset was, Donald Trump was setting up the chessboard with on his side all queens, no pawns, and kings. Do you understand what I'm talking about? And some knights too, so they can move a little bit different ways. He didn't have any pawns. On the other side, he took away all their queens. Do you know why I say queens? He was taking them all out. This is why he did it. This is why he was doing it in 2017 over here. He spent all of his time from 2017 from here all the way up to the CARES 2 Act, taking out their queens, setting up the chessboard so that when he was starting that particular thing, they had the queens out of the way. All they had when they set up the chessboard and let them go, the Fauci and all the other idiots, all they had was pawns and the king to move around. Well, you get to win when you have that little of stuff. I'm telling you, you're missing the point. You guys think that they're winning. No. When you hijack the game this way, there is no way they get to win. I know you think I'm totally nuts here, but that's how you win a game. It just takes a little while to get through it. So it was a pre-death of the Fed, which brings us in to the COVID craziness. Because if it really was that deadly, we would have seen hundreds of millions. We would have seen the kind of stuff that was happening in 1919. We would have seen some of the stuff that you saw on many of all those crazy circumstances. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Mad Max, where half the population or more of the population that dies, there's a movie, there's a TV series out there called Leftovers. It 2% of the population just vanishes, okay? And they never really explain how they actually go. It's 140 million people that disappear into another reality, okay? And it totally screws them up. Okay, first off, 140 million people didn't die, okay? In our circumstance, okay? But if 140 million people did die, it isn't even close to that in this circumstance. But we have, maybe 10 to 15 million people that have been killed off in this way, or maybe that. It's probably a lot less than that. But still, it's a scam point. It's a significant issue. And look how much chaos it's created with that. They have been hijacked. It was way less than it's just a common cold. You don't understand. It was way less virulent than you understood. And most of us get it. It led into the summer riots of Antifa. And that's what they wanted. And all the craziness so that they could show off this is what they wanted. This is how they wanted it. That's what the pawns do. They riot and they look stupid. And then we get this Joe Biden one. Now, I'm going to pitch a couple things to you, and some of you are going to go, you've got to be completely nuts. But let me throw some things at you with Joe Biden that are just totally interesting. I mean, they're so weird, it's not funny. First off, he places fifth in most states, including what I believe. Now, I'm going to hope I'm right on this one. I think I remember he was fifth in his own state of New Hampshire. Like going, and think about this. Hiawatha was above. I mean, Hiawatha would have been more effective than him. Bernie Sanders, he's running the Bernie Sanders playbook. Why didn't Bernie Sanders? But Bernie Sanders is way too left for him. Why didn't we have drunk Nancy? I mean, seriously, should have been a much more stronger candidate, much more, interesting, personality. How about Gavin Newsom? Would have been a much more interesting, smarter person to do. And at the time frame, you had Tulsi Gabbard, who was running for president at the time frame. But they were given Idiot Joe, who couldn't complete a sentence to save his life. Now, when you go back into Joe, he's got so many demons around him, not just literal demons, but demons of his dealings with China. And he's got video clips of him with China's responses and Ukraine issues and stupid things that he said with Obama and sideline things that he's always been one of the worst vice presidents, along with potentially Al Gore. Al Gore and Al Gore was just a little bit higher than Joe Biden, but not too much of a difference, right? And you go, okay, I'm not sure I would put them, Al Gore is just a little higher, right? And then I want to pitch something to you that I have some military contacts that are saying here, and there's a potential for this one. And I'm just gonna throw this one out there. One of my military contacts are saying to me right now that one of the craziest things out there that could be the possibility is that Lee Harvey Oswald has a really weird a picture where he's holding the rifle right before the Dallas shooting that is definitely a photoshopped thing. No, we all know it's photoshopped. Where he's outside of a back apartment. We know it's photoshopped. No one questioned that it's a photoshopped thing because the lighting's all wrong. Now, in 1963, you can't really Photoshop very easily. Okay, right? It's cut and paste, and you have to put Photoshop on top of it. No one disbelieves that it's not photoshopped, but it's very probable, or at least potentially probable. Get this, we know that Poppy Bush, or George H. Walker Bush, was outside of the book depository and maybe was leading the kill team for JFK's shooting. We know that for a fact because Herbert Hoover said so, who is the FBI director, and Bush has one of the worst sets of memories on that day, as well as Barbara Bush has weird statements around that day. And we go, wait a second. And he was also the CIA director and was also in the CIA at the time frame and just has crazy statements about this. And let me propose another kind of conversation that might be the case. Is it possible that Joe Biden was one of the shooters in that time frame? Because that is one of the potentials that is out there. Could that not mess you up as well? Now, why would I say that? Because that is one of the potentials out there. And you might say, no, that just is too nuts. No, we will find out about that. And let me ask you the question. Normally, you release documentation about JFK or any kind of secret documentation when all the people are dead that were at the time frame. Almost all those people are, it's 60 years ago. Who's alive in that time frame? Everyone is dead of that time frame. Even Poppy Bush, almost everyone's dead who would have been involved in that time frame. I'm just asking the question. I just think it's one of the most fascinating things because even Trump, who was one of his closest friends, was JFK Jr. and RFK Jr. always has talked about his uncle shooting. We have that in the ethosphere, and we know that RFK wants to be involved in the conversation of Joe Biden. Oh my gosh, there's too many crazy things in that one. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility. But why it was Joe Biden given as an allowance to this? Just a thought. Just a thought. And then November comes around and we have massive, massive levels of voter fraud shown over the last 3 years in levels of voter fraud with 2,000 mules, and over and over and over again with voter fraud issues where they stuff the ballots and just mules everywhere, and massive level of foreign interference with election fraud issues, as shown in the public sphere, where we have Michigan and Pennsylvania that show more voters than even exist in the state. That he has 81 million votes that we can't even exist for. So we have 81 million voters for, and Trump has 74 million, which means we have more voters than could exist in the nation. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense because he couldn't even get 6 people in circles around himself. It never makes any sense. On and on and on. But what we were looking at is that the Great Reset was dying. In the same time frame that we're seeing in that time frame from 2020 on, the Great Reset was dying. And we see that the money stolen from the Fed, and this is what had to happen, the $7 to $10 trillion, more than has ever been taken out of the Federal Reserve, has been taken out of that Federal Reserve, has been taken out and put to their pet projects. It's because they are desperate, because the money has not been flowing in the normal sources. So they had to bring it out of the Fed. And the people who were normally responsive in the Republican Party are not responsive anymore. I have personally talked to those Republicans about not allowing those things to come out of the Fed in the budget issues, and they're not responsive, which tells you those people in the Republican Party and those people in the Democratic Party are all being paid through that stuff. They're all complicit in that. This is what happens. Which tells us that right after the election issues, They had to devolve the government, not Cash Patel, which was my mistake one time. It's Patriot Patel. He has a 13-part series on devolution, or they devolved the government, which gave them very little ability, Idiot Joe and all the rest of the morons, any ability to actually control the capabilities of the government. So what happens is that they were running only the corporation. Now you're going to find that they don't have nuclear capability. They tell you that they do. They tell you that they have capabilities in this. They tell you that they have the running of the fourth estate, which is the media. They have running of some level of the fake capabilities of a lot of areas, but they don't have it. The real military is working for the Antique Cabal, the good guys. The Cabal has no capability. So I'm trying to give you the timeline of this, and we are working through this, and I'm trying to give you just an overall idea so that you can see this. So I hope that helped you out today. We wanted to give you some of that information. I just wanted to give you a good idea, trying to keep it within about 30 minutes. Went over a little bit here too. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll be setting it up here for you. And we will do the next part probably next week. Thanks so much.